Alright, good morning YouTube. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing Jeff Nippard's smartest push-pull leg program. It's a new program that he just put out. It's the 2021 push-pull leg program. I'm sure he has a lot on his channel, and maybe I'll get to them, but we'll see. There's a lot of programs out there that I want to look over and share my thoughts and opinions on. But for today, we're going to be looking at Jeff Nippard's push-pull leg program. Now, I'm very familiar with a lot of Jeff's programming. It's not difficult to find a lot of his stuff on the internet. Not saying that I did, but a lot of his content is out there, and a lot of his programs have been reviewed by a lot of other people, and his programming is generally pretty good. Like, he's not bad at programming by any stretch of the imagination, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's above critique, because there's certain things about, let's say, his programming, maybe his template that he chooses, that I think is worth noting for most people, whether when they're choosing what kind of program they want to run. So when it comes to my personal training philosophy, I would classify myself as a power builder, because when you are trying to develop both size and strength, to some degree they have overlap, but there's also a level of competition between these two things. So the more focused you are on strength, by its very nature, you are less focused on size. The more focus you put on size, the less focus you put on strength. So there's an opportunity cost and there's a constraint of the two. The thing that you're trying to look for when you have a program is the opportunity cost of either adaptation the best between both? Is it efficient? Are you training in a way that maximizes the amount of strength for the amount of size you're trying to get, and vice versa? That's what you're trying to look for in a program when you are trying to get some amount of strength and some amount of size. So let's see how this program actually manages that. So day one is his legs one day, and this is already a step above most push-pull leg programs. I think out of all the push-pull leg templates, the push-pull leg variation or the push-pull leg sequence is actually the worst. Having a push day, then a pull day, then a leg day is not my favorite and by any means, simply because if you have a pull day, most of the time, you're going to put your deadlift on a pull day. The deadlift is a very posterior chain focused movement, and then you are going to go into your leg day, which has a lot of squatting, and the squat does use the posterior chain as well, and you are now going to go into your squat with a fatigued lower back. I don't really like that. So let's see how he handles his leg day. So exercise 1, 3 sets of 4 reps at 80% of 1 rep max. This is very reasonable. I would like to see a rep range here, mainly because if you are, when you use straight sets, that typically means what you're going to manipulate is going to be weight. So I know, because I did watch the video, but I can't really remember everything about it. It's a fairly long video, but if I remember correctly, on his bench press, he has it where it's like 3 sets of 8, and it goes from 3 sets of 8 to 4 sets of 8 to 5 sets of 8. So maybe he does something very similar here, because one thing I do want to advocate for is having a variety of ways to progress in your training for certain movements. Certain things you can definitely keep a bit more constant. So for example, I'm not going to push progression on a seated leg curl the same way I would my squat. But here, what I think he will have you do is like 3 sets of 4, 4 sets of 4, 5 sets of 4, and then you go up in weight. Or you just do 3 sets of 4 all the time, and then you just add 2.5% of using your 1 rep max. Either way, 3 sets of 4 for your back squat is really good. Rep ranges are indicative of intensity. And for 80%, doing 3 sets of 4 reps is very reasonable, and it's very good for building strength. For size, I think that you could actually do a bit more, but the thing is, because the squat is one of those lifts where it can get away with higher intensities, and you can build a lot of muscle with higher intensities with this movement, it's fine. It's actually good. The next exercise, Romanian deadlift, 3 sets of 10. This is a great pairing of a squat and a hinge. I am an advocate of squatting and deadlifting in the same session. However, it's really important to understand that you can't be squatting and deadlifting with the same amount of intensity, and the That's actually the main thing. You can't be using like a heavy squat and heavy deadlift in the same day. If you're going to do a squat, like your main squat, you want to be doing a deadlift variation afterwards for higher reps. If the squat is heavy, and then vice versa on the deadlift day. So, for example, on my old program, I would on my deadlift day, I would do something like front squats or pause squats because these are movements that force me to use lighter weights, and I would do them for higher rep ranges than I would on my squat day. After that, you have single leg press, 3 sets of 15. Eccentric, accentuated leg extension, 3 sets of 10 to 12. So the leg press, depending on your foot placement, it can vary as far as what muscle gets the most amount of work. But generally speaking, it's still a quad focused exercise. And so when you do single leg press followed by eccentric accentuated leg extensions, I think this kind of dips into the realm of possible junk volume, just because in my opinion, I don't think the leg extension is really adding all that much to your legs, like quite honestly. Um, at this point, you already did squats, you already did single leg press. I don't really see the advantage to doing the leg extension. I know in his video he mentions how you're targeting a specific muscle more directly, and as a bodybuilder that makes sense. So if you are truly just trying to maximize everything, then sure, why not? But generally speaking, I think if you were to cut out anything and notice very little in terms of a detrimental effect, you can definitely cut out the leg extension. After that, you have the seated leg curl, and that's really good because you have a hip hinge, which is going to work the hamstring like from the hip, and then you're going to do a leg curl, which works it from the knee. He uses the seated leg curl variation because he cited a recent study that showed that the seated leg curl, is actually superior to the lying leg curl, and it's something worth noting, like that there is a clear advantage, at least in the literature, between a seated leg curl and a lying leg curl. But I would still recommend that you try it out for yourself. After that, you have standing calf raise, 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. I know he also does like myo reps because he has an imbalance in his calves. Myo reps is basically it's kind of like a rest pause variation where I think the original protocol was like 3 to 5 reps, but then like it kind of got expanded to other rep ranges like 5 to 10, 10 to 15, where basically you rest for a little bit, do 10 to 15 reps, rest for a little bit, do 10 to 15 reps, and you stop when you can't do a set of 10 anymore, or the lowest number. But standing calf raise, so if I'm doing any type of leg pressing, I would honestly just do my leg presses there. I don't think that there's really any major difference. And this is, like I said, this is coming from the perspective of a power builder who tries to train a bit more efficiently, try not to waste too much time, and kind of like get the most out of like certain bouts of effort. So for me personally, when it comes to calf raises, if you're going to go on a leg press, just do your calf raises there. I don't really think that there's too big of a difference in muscle activation between a leg calf press, like doing your calves on the leg press versus standing and using machine. Like, unless you truly feel that the standing calf raise machine, or like doing it on a Smith machine, is just significantly better, then you can make an argument there. But generally speaking, if that were the case, rather than doing the single leg press, I would do something like a Smith machine hack squat, so then I could superset it with a Smith machine standing calf raise, if that was the case. Following that, you have the decline crunch and long liver plank. So nothing wrong with that. I mean, one thing that I would personally do, because I think he has it 7A and 7B, so you're supersetting the two. One thing I would personally do to get a little bit more ab work and to save a little bit more time is, if after, let's say, you seated leg curls and maybe the leg extension, if you decide to keep it in there, is just replace the rest time with doing those movements, or do 60 seconds of rest, do the decline crunches, then 60 seconds go back into the seated leg curl. I mean, it just depends on how you want to set it up, but overall his leg day is pretty good, so I'm not gonna really get into it too much, but generally speaking, this is a good leg day. Then we go into push 1. So here he has bench press, 3 sets of 8. That's a great rep range for the bench press. And if you watch any of my previous videos, you'll know that I really do think that for the bench press, The bench press is one of those lifts that benefit the most from higher volumes. The squat and the deadlift get away from low volume work or lower volume work, and can get away with higher intensities, but the bench press is something that you really need to pave a path. You need to really build up your tolerance to fatigue and volume and go from there. So 3 sets of 8, great. And then I know in the video he says that he does 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 8, and then he drops back down with a higher percentage, so he goes back down to 75%, and that's fine. That's do whatever works. Like whatever you do, just make it work. Following that, you have machine shoulder press, 3 sets of 12. That's a good rep range because this is a higher volume day. He's not like going super like. One thing I will say about like, let's say this day, right, is you do 3 sets of 4 on squats, but then everything else is kind of like super high rep range. And I know you can't separate volume and intensity, but me personally, what I would do is with this is since my squat is like in the 4 rep range, I would try to keep everything 6 to 10 at most. I mean, he only goes to 15 on the single leg press, so it's not that big of a deal. But generally speaking, like if you're going to be working, let's say below 5 reps, the top end of your rep range for that day should be around 10, just so that way intensity is kind of stable throughout the day, the training day, and then kind of go from there. But that's kind of a nitpick. Overall, this is still a really good day. And then here it kind of does that a bit better because you're doing 8 reps, then 12 reps. You're sticking with a high rep range. Basically, there's no conflicting, like you're not going to really run into the risk of the interference effect where your body's like, okay, do I get better at lifting heavy or do I get better at handling a shit ton of volume? Like you're not going to be running into that on this day at least. Dips, 3 sets of 12 to 15. So body weight dips. If you were to add weight to this, then you would probably have to drop the reps down, but 3 sets of 12 to 15 on body weight dips, very good. Eccentric accentuated skull crusher, 3 sets of 8 to 10. That's good. Egyptian lateral raise. So I just copied and pasted this from a comment underneath Jeff Nippard's video. So there's going to be some stuff in parentheses that the person who wrote out this, I need thank goodness for them, right? But they have a lot of stuff in parentheses like regarding their personal thoughts on things. Egyptian lateral raise, 3 sets of 12 with myo reps on the last set. So 3 sets of 12. So basically it's like he does 12 reps, he rests for a bit, does 12 more reps, rest for a bit, 12 more reps, rest for a bit, and he just keeps doing that until he can't hit 12 reps anymore. Cable tricep kickback, 3 sets of 20 to 30. So let's see. Like I do like the skull crusher, and as far as like the tricep work, when you do any type of direct tricep work, in my opinion, it should be long head because bench press, shoulder press, dip, all of those movements are going to use your triceps. When you do a lot of pressing movements, it's going to use your triceps. So the thing that usually gets left out of most pressing movements is the long head of the tricep. So it makes sense to actually throw that in as your isolation work because it's not getting hit. When you do any type of isolation work, you want to make sure that you're hitting the muscle that doesn't get hit all that much. Jeff has a talent with push days, so there's nothing wrong with this template. The only thing that I would say is like for some things you could just superset them, like Egyptian lateral raise and cable tricep kickback. Just superset the two. Like part of the reason why I like supersets is just because I am of the opinion that you should just get in, get your workout in, and go home. Like it doesn't really benefit you to be sitting around all that much. And with isolation exercises, like you're not going to be gasping for air after a set of lateral raises, or at least you shouldn't be. So yeah, I would just like kind of superset them, get the workout done a bit quicker, so that way you can just get back to recovery. That's the main thing. Like muscles, like you give your muscles a reason to grow in the gym, but they don't actually grow in the gym. They grow when you're resting. So that's why I kind of prefer just getting in, getting out, start your recovery. Pull day. So this is kind of where we start to run into the issues of this template. So his pull day, in my opinion, is basically a rest day. Not because these exercises are easy or anything like that. It's simply because if you were to kind of like, if you look at this, right, it's 5 exercises. If you were to just cut it in half, so maybe 2 exercises on leg day, 2 exercises on the push day, you could essentially get rid of this day entirely, and now you have an extra rest day. That's my big issue with this. It's the fact that when you do a push-pull leg program, you are doing 6 training days for to hit each muscle group only twice. That doesn't really benefit. Like, I don't think, like, it's a high frequency program, but you're not hitting the muscles with high frequency, because 2 times a week is still fairly just moderate. Like, you don't really dip into higher frequencies until after about 3 times a week, and you're not really getting that. So honestly, what I would personally do with this template is just take the pull days, split them up, and divide them into the push and leg days, and then now suddenly you have an upper lower split, and with pull exercises on each day, and then now you have extra rest days. I think that's a better allocation of time and effort, because here you're just kind of coming in and doing pump work. Like, weighted pull-ups is the only hard thing you're doing this on this day, and for one, this I think this is an intermediate program. Like, if he like in his description, I'm pretty sure he mentioned that it's an intermediate program. So, intermediates probably can do weighted pull-ups, but you know, novices like to run like just programs that look cool to them. So, and if they look up to the person, like the person, then they're gonna run their program. So, weighted pull-up, I don't like using the weighted pull-up as like your main strength work. I would much rather see your strength work go to something like a barbell row variation, like a pendlay row, a bent row, something of that nature. But for the template, it's not going to be the best, because your next training day, the next day after this, is your leg day. So it's not going to be the best move to be doing that. Like, you're not going to do barbell rows, fall, and then the very next day you're going to be doing deadlift. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of a push-pull leg split. Part of the reason why I'm not, like, I made a whole video about this, but part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of a push-pull leg split is because of that issue of recovery. What is a program for? A program is for you to map out your hard work and plan your recovery. That is the purpose of a program. And in a push-pull leg split, your recovery is basically non-existent unless you run an asynchronous split where you're doing push-pull legs rest, push-pull leg split rest. But then you're going to run into the issue of being inconsistent with your workout, because your workouts are inconsistent week to week by their very nature. Your rest day fluctuates, and that could kind of throw you off. Like, most people have their life structured around a 7-day week, and if you don't, then who cares? Like, if consistency is of no consequence to you, then that critique means zero to you. But for the most part, most people are running their lives on a 7-day split just because it's easiest to run it that way. So, weighted pull up, 3 sets of 6. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that for the main strength work. And then after that, you're just basically doing like cable machine movements. And like I said, just split that between your leg day and your push day. Now you get an extra day of rest. You can fit everything within a 7-day 7-day period, and then, like, you have, rather than one rest day, you now have 3. Because if you're doing, if you're splitting up the pull day, you're now opening up 2 days of recovery, 2 more days of recovery. That's 3 rest days. You can do something else like your cardio, your GPP, and then you're not going to be impacting your ability to progress at all, in my opinion. So his pull day is going to be my least favorite day of the program, because it's one free weight exercise essentially, because you're doing your body weight and you're just adding weight to it, and then the rest is just machines. Like, would it be difficult to add this on the other days? I would say no. After that, you have leg day 2. So part of the reason why his pull day is so lackluster is because you have deadlifts the next day, and deadlifts are just going to put a shit ton of size everywhere, and they are going to use the back a lot. So 3 sets of 3 is great on deadlifts. One thing I would recommend is, if you're going to do 3x3, I kind of like doing a top set with that, but 3 sets of 3 is already a really good 80 to 85%, 1 rep max, great. Hack squat, 3 sets of 10 to 12, alternative with goblet squats, great quad burners. Like, these really build the quads as well. I love hack squats. Goblet squats feel great, so good movements there. Single leg hip thrust, 2 sets of 15. Nordic hamstring curl, prisoner back extension. So Nordic hamstring curls and back extensions are bodyweight exercises. So generally speaking, you don't need sets and reps for these ones. On most bodyweight exercises, I would just go like 1 to 2 reps shy of failure. For this, I think 2 to 3 sets would be fine. Single leg calf raise. So yeah, like, you could do this on the hack squat, quite honestly. Weighted L-sit hold, 3 sets to failure. So that's a pretty advanced calisthenics movement. So nothing crazy there, but if you can't do that exercise, there's other exercises. You can even do a progression to get to that exercise and go from there. But let's see. His leg day 2, I do like that it's like what I mentioned earlier. He has a heavy deadlift and then he has a volume based squat variation. It's not the main squat. So this is a good leg day. And then you have, more hamstring work. And the hamstrings, like, I think they are a more important muscle group, in my opinion, for quads. But that's basically because I'm coming from a strength training perspective and a longevity perspective. I think having overpowering quads and really good quad development is a priority for bodybuilders or size focused lifters. But generally speaking, for the strength and health of your lower body, hamstrings, in my opinion, are more important. So, not really complaining about that there. But yeah, like I would just take a lot of the pull stuff and just put it on this day, honestly. It will work just fine. Push day 2. So you start out with the overhead press, 4 sets of 4 with 80%. So when it comes to the overhead press is a movement that you can definitely intensify to, and doing 4 sets of 4 for 80%, that is intensity work, or like pretty good strength work, and it's going to work, right? And since you are only doing the overhead press, at least the barbell overhead press, only once per week, and I think in the other push day, yeah, you do machine shoulder press for higher reps, so this is fine. But generally speaking, when it comes to the overhead press, I kind of do prefer not pushing the intensity on it all that much, simply because the maximum amount of weight that you can lift on an overhead press is not as much as you would on, let's say, a deadlift or a bench press or a squat. So it progresses a lot slower. So pushing intensity on this, in my opinion, isn't the best for actually building it. And to build it, I would actually recommend something like 6 to 10 reps and just really getting better at that rep range. Like trying to get more weight in the 6 to 10 rep range. I just find that personally to have worked better than trying to push intensity on this movement, so low rep work. But that's just a personal thing. If you are trying to build your overhead press, if you are trying to get a size benefit from it, yes, strength work is going to eventually carry over. But honestly, I would just do 6 to 10 reps and add weight over time with that. Following that, you have close grip bench press, which is a great movement for the chest, triceps. So that's great. Cable crossovers. He does a drop set on it. Great. Overhead tricep extension, lateral raises for 21s, neck flexion and extension. So this is like, so for example, like, going back to what I was talking about with the push-pull leg split and why I have issues with it, is it really that difficult to superset a overhead press and a chin up? Even if it's weighted, it's not even that difficult. Close grip bench, like if your gym is set up in a way where you can do your rows immediately after, why not do them? It'll make you fitter. Your performance won't drop considerably. Like honestly, I actually feel like doing some pulls helps me push better, and you can go from there. And then a lot of these exercises can just be supersetted one after the other, but that's just me. Let's go into pull 2. So another example of why this day is kind of like a weird thing, because you're basically going into the day just to do some pump work. Like you're starting the day with a lat pull down, which is like a waste of time in my opinion. Lat pull downs can be placed on a leg day. They can be placed on the push day. They don't need to have their own day. Same thing with the chest supported row. These are exercises that just really fit well and really complement the fact that you're going to be doing so much pushing and so much stuff like that. So rope face pull. He's a fan of face pulls. Nothing wrong with that. Optional incline dumbbell shrug, reverse pec deck, and pronated supernated curls. So he does. Let's see. Yeah, he does 10 reps pronated and 10 reps supinated. That's kind of what's blocked by my camera. But yeah, it's like this stuff right here honestly would take me 45 minutes. Like, and if I'm trying to get out of the gym like in under an hour, or then like in at about an hour to about an hour 30, you could throw in all the pull stuff, which is like my biggest issues with the push pull leg template. It's 6 days a week, 2 times a week muscle frequency, but a lot of these exercises can either be supersetted with certain things or just be done after. Like, yeah, like how much rest do you reasonably need after a set of tricep extensions? Like maybe 2-3 minutes? Not even 3 minutes. Like closer to like 1 to 2 minutes. And And then lateral raises for the 21, same thing, like 2 minutes at most. And yeah, you will get done with this in 45 minutes. You'll go home and then you're gonna come in the next day to do another pull day. But the thing is, like, when it comes to working out, right? The amount of time it takes to do your workout isn't just the amount of time it takes to work out. So like I said, this might be 45 minutes, this might be 45 minutes. But the thing is, you have to get ready, you have to prepare for the gym, you have to drive to the gym. So the issue that I have with it is just for the amount of times you're going to the gym. It's just not worth splitting up your work in this way. That's my biggest issue with push-pull legs. And also, it requires a higher level of consistency for the person who chooses to do a push-pull legs. Too many times do I see people, because like life is, fairly unpredictable. We try to manage it as best as we can, but generally speaking, like, so for example, Jeff Nippard, right? He has zero problem doing a 6-day split because working out is his life. For the recreational lifter, for most people who, they have other things that they like to do in their lives, but they want to get the most out of every single time they go to the gym, if they miss one training day, they are getting half of the volume that they would be getting otherwise. And then let's say there's just one argument that I heard in defense of the push-pull leg is that the next day you have a rest day and then you just kind of make up for that day and you go on from there. And that's great, because I mean it's good because you don't miss a day technically, and you just kind of like, if you're just missing one day here and then making up for it the next day. But it just doesn't really, at that point, my argument would be just cut down the amount of days you're in the gym to something more manageable, so that way you always know each week you're not missing out, because like you're just letting your volume and your tonnage be too sporadic, and sure, you might be making up for it, but the more sessions you miss, the more you kind of put off your training. It just elongates the process for you to actually make meaningful gains. And that's the purpose of the program. The purpose of the program is to get you to the point that you're trying to get to at a reasonable amount of time, for a reasonable amount of effort, and getting a good amount of recovery. That is the purpose of the program, and the push-pull leg template, generally speaking, just doesn't really do that. If you have, and like I said, if you have zero problems with consistency, then that critique doesn't matter to you. But another thing is just that level of recovery. You do, in this version of the push-pull leg, you do legs, pull, push. But after you do the pull day, you have a leg day. But the thing is, this pull day is just so lackluster to make up for the fact that your next day is legs. So you're only training the legs twice a week. You're only training every muscle twice a week. And these are things that you can actually hit a bit more frequently. I'm not saying you need to do a full body or anything like that, or but this is just why I think, generally speaking, a upper lower is superior, because a lot of these, like this pull day can be split up, this pull day can be split up, and then you get 2 more days of recovery. And then you can do everything else you want to do in your life, whether that be your work, your family, your friendships, your relationships, doesn't matter. So it's just a bit more sustainable, in my opinion, in the long run. I'm not saying it's a superior, like you're not going to get better gains from doing the upper lower split. I'm just saying that if you were to take this, turn it into an upper lower, you would have more time available to you for other things, and it'll allow you to be more consistent, because it's a lot easier to be consistent with 4 days a week than 6 days a week. And consistency is the biggest roadblock for most people. Most people are just not consistent enough with their training, and then the most popular training program is a push-pull leg, and they struggle with consistency. I see it all the time. Most people who do push-pull legs always have that issue where or during this week I missed my push day, during this week I missed my pull day, during this week I missed one of the leg days. And that's just why I generally have an aversion to this template, is because oftentimes when I talk to a person, they'll say, well, I'm doing a push-pull leg split and I'm not progressing on this. Typically that I would say, like, how often do you miss one of the days? And they'll say, like, maybe every other week, maybe once a month. And that can make a difference. That can compound over time to justify why you're not making as much progress as you think you should be, which is why I think, generally speaking, you just want to maximize the amount of time you can be consistent. Consistency is key, and a 6-day split only works if you can make sure you do 6 days every single week, 48 to 52 weeks out of the year. That is the only way it works. And That is just asking a lot from the average gym goer. Now, if you are not the average gym goer and you can be consistent with this, it's going to work great. This is a fairly good program. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. It's actually really good. But it's just that issue of, are you going to be consistent with it? Do you have the ability to be consistent with it? Do you have the ability to recover from this? Because, some people will find that this work might be a bit much for them and they would need to kind of draw back a little bit on the volume, and they might need more recovery. So whether or not this program is feasible for you is something that you're going to have to experiment with on your own. But yeah, if I'm gonna leave it on that. But yeah, try it out. It's a good program. It doesn't solve much of the issues with the push pull leg program, because I'm trying to think, um because I'm always trying to figure out how can I do a good push pull leg. And this is actually a fairly good way of doing it, because your pull days are just so light and lackluster. They're just pump work, so that way you're not really running into that recovery issue. But then you kind of ask the question, why not just split these pull days into the main days, which is my question. But anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Cross the King. This is a good program. If it's just the fact that I think the push pull leg template doesn't really it's just not my favorite template. But that doesn't mean that this program isn't good. So if you can be consistent with this program, it's gonna work great for you. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Cross the King, stanstrength.com. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.